Hey everyone, my name is James Niehaus, and today in this video I'm going to walk you through what are multi-step interactive forms. So at FunnelEnvy we use this, all the time with our clients, and we've seen some great wins. And we thought today we would actually share with you, what we've learned from those efforts, and hopefully encourage you to do the same on your side. And for those who don't know who we are, FunnelEnvy, we are both a platform and an agency supporting, demand gen marketers to help them grow website revenues and pipeline from their B2B and SaaS websites. So with that quick introduction, let's jump right into it. So what we'll cover today is what these forms are. So on the right, you see a good example of one in motion. We'll talk about the results we've been seeing with our clients. We'll talk about some best practices we've learned from doing this with our clients. And we'll talk about some techniques and lessons learned that you can use and adopt to make it easier for you to get started on your side. So let's jump right into it. And first off, let's all recognize that we all hate forms, right? So whether it's a mortgage application or whether it's a tax form, right? It's something we prefer not to do. And the providers know this, and that's why it's very hard for you today to complete a mortgage application online without going through a multi-step experience like we see here. Or as we all know with taxes, TurboTax and others have made that the standard experience, step-by-step guided questions. And we all like it, and we prefer this. But why? It's common sense. It's less intimidating, easy to get started. We see even though we know there's more fields, it's an easier way to start and get the process going, so we feel less perceived commitment. And lastly, most importantly, ideally if we do it right, as an end user, we think we're being guided down a better path, which will, as we know, save us time and give us better results. So there's all positives in why we've seen this kind of be the prominent way, at least in B2C, where complex forms are being presented. So they've been doing this for like 15, 20 years. LendingTree is one of the pioneers of this. They found out early on that in a competitive space, this gave them an advantage. Right, can provide you a better user experience, make it easier for you to fill out a form and become a lead. And now, fast forward to today, you really can't complete a mortgage lead or auto insurance quote without going through some similar experience. So it's now the standard for B2C. But for B2B, unfortunately, it still seems to be the 1990s, where it's still static forms, no interactivity, and it's pretty much the standard for most of the industry, which is unfortunate, but it's slowly changing. So if you see here, there are some examples out there. So like Drift and Intercom and others like them who provided like chatbots. That's helping. So if you can get one of their bots, you can usually get a nice playbook experience of decision tree experiences. So that's a good start. But as we all know, the majority of your website visitors still want to interact with your website, not a chatbot. And we've seen some people provide multi-step forms like Salesforce here with their trials. It's a good start, but there's obviously more that can be done. But for B2B, there's some additional hurdles that are typical of most of our clients. So for example, if you're in the B2B space, this is typically going to be, you're going to have one of these 4 vendors, and they're providing your email, your forms, your landing pages, and your workflow. So they make it really easy too by things like, let's copy and paste our embedded form, put it on your website, or we'll host it to your landing page, and you're done. That's pretty easy. But of course, their default experience is a single static form. Now, the second hurdle we often see is that you do need web developer resources to do this. Not a lot, typically a couple days to a week's worth of time. But typically our B2B clients don't have that easy access to a developer. They typically, stretch thin and prioritize for other tasks. So that's also a hurdle. And oftentimes when we work with clients, we actually help them in this one particular area. We augment their team with a developer who can help them for a couple of days to build out that form. And the third hurdle is it's not a priority. Typically the websites is not the focus. It's about getting traffic to the website. So they're chasing the latest ad tech and martech to make it easier to target intent, ABM, and get more people to the site. But they're often, missing out on the opportunity to actually convert them at a higher rate. So we actually think it's, it's more cost effective and more impactful to actually increase your conversion rates by doing a multi-step experience. especially when we see results like this. So I figured this is what people are most interested in hearing about, which is what are the actual results. So these numbers are actually real numbers we've had with recent clients in the past year running multi-step interactive forms on their site. So again, these are meaningful lifts on forms like demos and pricing and get started forms. So your core sales forms. So that's a huge win for many of our clients. And for the most part, for the majority of our clients we tried this on, it's worked. Typically double digits or higher. I think only one example I can recall, we ran this where it didn't necessarily win across the board, but it still won for the returning segment for around 20+%. So even if we don't get a clear win across the board, we still see important lifts for key segments. So this is why we want to stress that we think this is probably the most viable tactic you can apply to your website to really maximize your revenue and your pipeline for the website. And here are some examples of the actual client experiences. So as you see here, again, simple, straightforward experiences that make it easier for their visitors to start and complete a form experience. So in most cases, it's using the same site style guide, same look and feel. We're just breaking up a more static form into smaller digestible pieces. And with that said, let's talk about some of the best practices we've seen working with our clients in this area. Now, the first thing you want to consider is, if at all possible, you want to lead this experience, that first question or two, with intent questions, right? So you want to ask them things that they care about first before you ask them for their name and their email, right? You want to get them excited and want them to get started and make it easy for them to get started. So intent questions, how large is your organization? What industry are you in? What features do you care about? What's your role? What are some of your integrations? There are many typical intent questions that I'm sure are just common things your sales team asks on a discovery call. Put one or two of those into the flow. So it makes sense, right? We all would rather get started with what's in it for me question, like what are the features you care about, versus what's my first and last name and my email address. Hopefully that makes sense. Second learning is you want to create momentum. So we want to ideally provide 2 or 3 questions that get that intent ball rolling. So here's an example of one of our clients, but again, the whole goal here is you want to make it easy for them to get started, and you want to create that momentum so that they feel committed to the process. So therefore, it's easier for them to convert and complete that final piece of the form, which is going to be the personal information that we need to collect to make it to run the business. Now, the third piece I want to call out also is that it's good to also set the proper expectations. So when you provide that form, that multi-step experience, call out the number of steps involved, and when possible, call out what you plan to do with that information. So are you going to help them make a better choice? Are you going to is this going to be passed to your sales team to make a more more effective quote or demo or discovery session? But let them know that this information is not going to be dropped to the floor. It's going to be used to help provide them a better outcome or experience, which is what they want, that guided treatment. Now, those are some simple best practices that hopefully make sense. And also talk about some lessons learned along the way from doing this with our clients. So one is pick the right form. Right? So while this works across the board on most forms, certain forms are better suited for this type of approach. And typically that's where the form's outcome could benefit, or it could vary based on their input. So this typically things like pricing, get started, talk to sales, or it could be like choosing the right demo or trial or package to purchase, or things like ROI calculators. But the whole idea with this is that the information they give you will either result in a better filtered choice that they'll be presented with on the website, or it's passed along to someone who when they reach out to them, they will use that information to better provide a quote, or have a better discovery conversation, or help them get to the answer quicker. But the whole idea here is sort of an exchange. I provide you more information, you provide me with a better outcome or better guided experience. So that's one lesson learned. Secondly, this may not sound intuitive, but you can actually ask more information as part of that multi-step experiences. So we had for a couple of clients, they had a very streamlined form already. They actually didn't have any intent questions. All they asked for was, contact information and row and title and company. So what we did for them is we actually added a question or two related to intent, about your team size, about your feature interest. And what we actually saw was that we still increased conversion rates because it made it easier for them to get started. And that was a big win because, one, we got big lifts, and secondly, they got better information. So it was effective across the board. So that's always a great thing. And then the third thing is that this works for more than just forms. So it doesn't have to just be your form pages where we apply this tactic. Now that's a broader topic, so I'm going to save that for another video that you can access on our site shortly after this one. But those are some lessons learned. And now the best part is hopefully now that you're excited about the idea, how can you get started with this as well? So here are some quick learnings and pointers here. So like we talked about, find the right form. So, use our criteria for what is the right forms that work best for this, but also, think about, are there certain forms that are easy to access, the stakeholders more comfortable with testing or exploring new ideas, or maybe they have more aggressive sales goals and you want to see a bigger, more bolder change. So find the right form. Secondly, before you start pulling in developers, figure out the design. Like, what's the user experience? What is going to be the treatment? The visuals, icons, no icons. What's the first question? What's the second question? But give it some thought as far as what the flow should be. Now, once you kind of have a general feel about that, you're going to want to pull in your developer to do two things. One is to kind of guide you down to what's the path that's maybe easier to instrument. And then obviously, the developer's going to have to then build it out. So the developer will need to figure out whether they kind of take the current marketing automation form and customize that, or do they create their own form and have that form post to the marketing automation, form post URL and the endpoint. So either way works. It's more just comfort and preferences of the company and a developer. So assuming you've identified and get started on that, if you are asking for new questions, just work with your marketing automation team to most likely create a new form specific for this kind of flow. So you are adding fields, that's probably another action you need to consider, but typically it's a straightforward request. And once you have all that figured out, you can launch. So we definitely recommend you run this as an A/B test to obviously quantify the results, make sure it works for you. And obviously, like I mentioned before, we also want to make sure you look out for how it performs by your top segments, because we have seen different levels of impact based on the segment where we filtered for. Once you've done that, and you hopefully got a win, you don't have to stop there. You can get additional upside by running additional tests or iterations. Again, this is your first pass, so you may not have gotten the visuals right, or the icon treatment, or maybe the question sequence could be improved upon, or the layout. So there's, again, not just one win here, but typically you can squeeze out a couple more incremental wins from additional iterations on the design. And then lastly, don't overlook this, but you want to expand this to other forms on your site in other areas. So again, I'll have more about this topic in another video about where else can this work for you on your website. But that's hopefully enough to get you enough to have you get started. And then with that said, like I mentioned, come back to the website. I'll be posting a couple other videos about, one, how this can be used in other places beyond the form. And secondly, I think an exciting one as well is how this can work with your ABM and personalization programs. So what we walk through right now is just your traditional, experience for all users. It's going to be a win typically, but there's even more you can do when it comes to using this flow to drive your ABM and personalization strategies and programs. So we'll talk about that in another video. For that and others, go to our website, FunnelEnvy.com/blog, and you'll be able to check out the content and hopefully enjoy this and other content that's similar. And with that said, thank you for your time. If you have questions, just drop me an email. And if you want to see our own interactive quiz, you can hit our website, and that quiz will actually help you evaluate whether you're the right fit for working with us. So check it out, and hopefully we can talk soon. With that, take care.